And someone who's been sitting listening to all of that is our next guest, Wallaby coach Robbie Deans.
He's into his 6th year as Australia's coach, the first foreigner to guide the Wallabies. We know his story well. A decorated All Black, Super Rugby titles with the Crusaders, and he was an All Blacks assistant coach. But now, Robbie Deans faces possibly his greatest test. And you sense a quiet confidence. Australian teams are among the pace setters in Super Rugby this season. In every position, there are tough choices to be made by the Wallaby coach. And that's a good thing, because the Lions are coming. Robbie Deans joins us on Rugby HQ.
Yes, indeed, the Lions are coming and we can't wait. Robbie, thanks very much for joining us once again. We were asking Warren Gatlin about George Smith, so we're going to ask you about George Smith as well. You had that chat, you told us you were going to have a chat last Saturday night with him. How did that go? Yeah,
it went well. Just caught up with George after the game back at the hotel. He's enjoying his rugby, loving being back in Super Rugby. It's a bonus for him, really. He has resolved to be able to carry on right to the end with the Brumbies. So, yeah, we inquired whether he is keen. He is keen. I understand there's a meeting happening tomorrow, but essentially they've got agreement in principle. And we just got to follow the process, approach Suntory and make sure that all the correct channels are dealt with.
It sounds like, I mean, if I was sitting at home listening to that, it sounds like you would quite like him to play against the Lions.
Oh, look, it'd be fantastic to have George Smith to be able to consider. You know, there's no guarantees in any of this, just as there's no guarantees with any player.
But you've got Michael Hooper, Liam Gill as well.
That's right. It'd be great to have that certainty. There's a lot of rugby to be played between now and then. And obviously, I guess, the other side with George, in terms of a squad, is he brings a lot of experience.
Robbie,
he replaces what Sharpie's left.
Robbie, what about the backline options? And I saw you had a brief chat to Quaid after the game last week at the Reds. You had plenty of options in the 12 jersey, 13 jersey. That combination is going to be very important. But does Quaid understand now what exactly he has to do in the next 5 or 6 games to be in that first Test team?
Oh yeah, I would think so. We haven't talked. We've spoken 3 times this week,
sure.
But yeah, he understands what will help him, and he also understands what will impede his progress. You know? Obviously, helping the Reds to thrive is an important part of it. That a 5/8 is the nerve centre, along with 9 in particular. But their key task is to help the team to thrive and be successful. And then there's some accountabilities, obviously, that at Test level you just can't hide from. So, he's got a pretty good handle on that.
In terms of the way that the teams are tracking this year, there's a couple of teams up the top end of the table. All the teams are playing some good rugby at different stages. What have you seen this year that you've been most heartened by going into this Lions series?
The thing that's heartened us the most is the ambition of the teams. They're now expecting more. They enter games, including against sides who previously, when the going got difficult, they might have dropped out of the contest. Now they're staying in the contest, and they're getting results that in the last couple of years we may not have got. So that's going to be important. The Lions series is going to be brutal. It's going to be a war of attrition, and that expectation of each other first and foremost, and then what they want to get out of the game will be key.
It seems to me like the last 18 months or so, there's been a lot of work put into the breakdown by states and particularly the Wallabies as well. That's really starting to translate now for me. When I watch games, numbers 1 to 22, they're getting stuck in. Is that an area that you've identified that Australia is actually going to be pretty strong in?
Well, as you know, Sharpie, it's an area we put a lot of work into last year and made good progress on. And that's where those expectations are most evident. It's the selfless work. It's the invisible stuff that often the public doesn't see. They tend to follow the ball. But if you don't have people working hard and asking of your opposition, being physical on every occasion when you meet them, making their momentum as difficult as possible, and then creating momentum yourself when you have the ball. But it's a key area, and it is an area, if you're asking for one area in the game, that's probably the one area where we have improved.
Robbie, Israel Folau, I want to ask you about his performance and what you've seen of the especially last Friday night, and where he would sort of be sitting at the moment, obviously Wallaby-wise. I know he's got a lot of rugby to be played as yet, but if he does sign with Rugby League in the next, say, 2 or 3 months, not saying he will, would you still look at selecting him if his form was up to it for the Wallabies?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we look at any player that's playing rugby currently in Australia,
Yep.
we consider. There's any number of players who may not play rugby in Australia next year for whatever reason.
Yep.
There's players who we'll select who mightn't have form next year. You don't concern yourself with the future. Test rugby's about on the day, and you want the best group that's going to get the job done.
How much does it change your world? And we touched on this on Saturday night about the injuries over the past 12 months, and at times it was obviously quite difficult to pick a side that you knew was going to be competitive, whereas now on all key positions you've got 2 or 3 guys who are really kicking down the door. How much does that change your world and the way you feel about what's coming up?
It gives you choice, which choice can be a problem to some extent.
It's a good problem.
But it's a good problem.
Yeah.
And getting the foundations in place will be key, and then the balance of the group, the balance of a squad, the balance of a playing squad on game day, but also the balance of the squad in terms of your preparation and being able to roll with injuries and form. And it's a team game, and on and off the field are one and the same. So we'll want blokes that are going to put in, who are going to help the team to thrive. It's a good choice, good problem to have, but it doesn't change. This is a great irony. It also happens around win and loss. People look at win and loss and think that the job changes. It doesn't change a lot. The key is to actually stick to the middle of the road and keep dealing with the things that are important, and they don't change a lot.
What about Curtly Beale? Since he's been out of the game for a period of weeks now, have you had much contact with him? I know you've been doing a little bit of paddle boarding with him, bit of training with him. Mentally, how's he travelling, and when do you think he'll be back playing rugby?
And how's he going paddleboard, mate? I'm worried about that.
Well, he doesn't spend long in the water, I can tell you that much. He fell in last week. I've only been out a couple of times with him, to be fair, but he fell in and he was back on the board by the time I turned around. So
This looks like a warm down for you, is it, at the moment? that's not racing, is it?
it doesn't look that challenging, does it?
How's he travelling?
He's good. He's working hard. He's having to cater for a lot of demands at the moment. He's got a lot of boxes to tick, so to speak. But he's getting it done. He's training hard at the same time. And even when he returns, and he will return sometime soon down to Melbourne, he'll have to deal with the history, obviously. He'll still have a lot asked of him in terms of mastering his behaviours and mastering his own destiny, essentially. So it's been a challenging time for him, for sure. He's pulling on the reins. He's keen to get back there, and there's no obstacles now to that end, other than just taking some requirements that have been put in front of him from psychologists in terms of counselling around alcohol, in terms of dealing with the rebels. Administration, players,
but it's also
staff.
great you're working with him, Robbie. I think that's fantastic that you're working with him going forward.
That's what we're here for.